today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thanks.
Uh,
I'm pretty excited. I just got back from vacation and couldn't wait to jump into this conversation with you. But really happy to be here.
Same here. So I would like to start this session. I would like to start this session with a brief introduction. So can you tell us something about yourself and GoTo?
Sure. Let me start with GoTo since that's appropriate. So GoTo is in the business of making uh, people, companies, and employees do their work from anywhere at any time. And essentially, work involves communication, collaboration, IT support, and management. I think that pretty much covers the gamut of what the substrate needs to be for any kind of businesses to function effectively. And so that's what we've been doing for the last several years, almost 20 years now. And we've evolved and adapted to change and in fact thrived on it because some of the concepts that we pioneered when we started have now become commonplace, like work from anywhere, blurring the distinction between office and uh, outside office boundaries, etc. As for myself, I've been in GoTo for close to 7 years now. I'm Vice President for Products and Engineering, responsible for one of GoTo's portfolio of products. So, and I've been working too long in the industry, so let's not go there.
As we were talking about GoTo, I would like to know about GoTo's products. So how would you explain some key features of GoTo Resolve to someone who's totally unfamiliar to the platform?
Sure. And I think maybe the best way to describe GoToResolve is by describing the problem and then telling you what GoToResolve does to handle it. So, if you look at how people work today, right, they usually use laptops, desktops, and mobile devices. I think no matter where you go, what you do, that's kind of the gamut of what people do to get their work done. And as with each of these devices, they run software that needs to be upgraded, kept up to date, be compatible with other software that they use on a daily basis, and essentially do what they're supposed to do, which is kind of get you to do your job and disappear without creating additional friction for you to do what you're doing. That's one part of how these things are supposed to work. The second part of how these things are supposed to enable or prevent from happening is to allow bad actors and bad things to happen to your businesses. Because when you work from anywhere, security becomes a big issue. And if there is a hole, you can be sure that some hacker, some bad actor will exploit it and then do damage to your business. That damage can be potentially fatal depending on the size of your business because some big enterprises have the capability to bounce back. Small businesses may not have that luxury just because of the margins they operate with. The third part of what these things are supposed to do, these devices and these laptops and these endpoints that we deal with, is that they're all supposed to work seamlessly together and let people function without creating silos or um, kind of obstructions come in the way of their collaboration. That happens if you and I use incompatible software, for example. And if I want to talk to you, but the tool that you use is not the tool that I use, and then we can't talk to each other and have this video conversation. So that becomes a problem. And so typically the people that are tasked with resolving all of these issues and making things function seamlessly are the IT folks. That makes their job really hard. When you talk about 5 people, 10 people, yes, it's possible for them to actually manually make sure everything is okay and deal with it. But let's say just that you increase that problem fivefold. suddenly it becomes unscalable for one person or a group of people to manage it and be confident that it's been handled successfully. That's where go to resolve comes in. It provides you with a easy to use modern interface for the IT professional to both provide reactive support and proactive IT management and monitoring. Um, and for larger enterprises, we've always had LogMeIn Rescue, which has been a flagship product that has provided similar functionality, including having uh, people provide these support to other multiple large enterprises itself. Essentially, with Go to Resolve and Rescue, we cover the gamut of all sizes of organizations doing what they're supposed to do, which is manage your IT infrastructure to help you get your work done easily and remove the worry of security and incompatibility and compliance, which are three important things.
So then, as you said, that security is a crucial aspect for an organization. So can you explain how using unsanctioned tools can affect the IT infrastructure of the organization?
And here again, sorry to sound like a broken record, um, it's important to understand why unsanctioned tools come about, and then you can understand what impact it has and how we can kind of help prevent it. And I think we typically call this shadow IT. That's like one of the terms that we use for this type of thing. And I think that typically it's caused due to, I would say, miscommunication. And you may be surprised to hear me say miscommunication being the one of the leading problems for this. And that's because if you look at any typical security update or an alert, there's usually a lot of jargon or technical terms that are used in describing what the potential pitfalls or downfalls of a particular policy or using a particular tool in an environment might be. And typically, the executives or the managers or the people that are receiving this communication don't often understand or appreciate the seriousness of the issue. Everyone has is well intentioned, everyone wants to do the right thing, but if you typically don't explain why there is a problem if you do this, right, people are less convinced and then they go on their own and do what they need to do, and that ends up with a situation where people use the tools that they prefer to get their job done as opposed to using a tool that is sanctioned by your security or your IT group to say this is what you shall use to make something happen. This is fine if you have like a few tools, but again, the complexity compounds with the number of people in the organization and the number of different types of tasks that you need to do. And people want to work from everywhere, right? And that's kind of how the world is today. So everybody has a variety of tools all over the ecosystem, so to speak. And that makes the life of a IT administrator incredibly hard. So that's why shadow IT happens because we can't tell people effectively why they're not supposed to do something. And so that will let them do what they want to do instead of telling them why they should be doing it. That's number one. The second thing to do is to understand the so what of it. And people don't often understand or underestimate the impact this can have. If you think about it, the most obvious impact is creating a security hole or a cybersecurity incident. We all install tools, but we all may not always update it to the latest versions whenever we want. Sometimes it's the middle of an important task and you say, I'll just put it off until tomorrow. That should be fine. But if it's a critical security update that you had to do, and you happen to be the one that does not have that update applied, you could be exposing a hole in your organization through which a bad actor can get in and create a cybersecurity incident. And it's pretty common. About 11% of the cybersecurity incidents reported are due to things like this. So that's one. The second, less obvious one is related to uh, data privacy and policy, right? So with GDPR and all the data protection rules that we have today, we are required to be compliant with the policies. Otherwise, the company that we work for pays the price in terms of penalties. And with the proliferation of tools, it's hard to manage what data is stored, used, and dealt with where. And that creates issues as well. And it creates data silos because different people are using different tools. The third thing, which I already talked about, was IT compatibility. If you use one tool, I use another, we can't talk to each other and we can't do work effectively with each other. And that again creates a problem which basically uh, essentially compromises our collaboration, compromises our teamwork, our relationship, whether it is between employees or between the company and its customers, and that creates a problem. So shadow IT has kind of a large and looming shadow that it can cast over businesses. And the third aspect of your question maybe was what can we do to kind of mitigate this problem and kind of help address this issue? And the best way that we can deal with it is by doing three things. One, being able to effectively support either reactively or proactively employees that run into these issues, because quite often the problem gets compounded if it cannot get resolved. I may not like a tool, right? But if I can find an answer to my problem using that tool quickly and I discover that I'm able to navigate the hurdles that I initially face, I'll stick with it. The frustration sets in if nothing gets resolved quickly. And then I go back and do my thing because I want to get my job done. So with GoTo Resolve, we are able to help resolve your, pun intended, problems quite quickly and efficiently and at scale. We can also automate all the simple things that take up IT administrators' time, like patch management, uh, upgrades to systems, monitoring proactively for issues that happen so that we can intercept and resolve your issue before you find out there's an issue on your problem on your end. And uh, seems easy with desktops and laptops in the sense that it's comprehensible. The challenge comes in when you have mobile devices and how you deal with it. But we do have mobile device management as well that can help you deal with that issue. Plus, it comes with a bunch of things that are kind of necessary as a baseline to establish this. And two of those things are endpoint protection. So we need to make sure that all the devices that we manage are tracked, monitored, and protected. And it's built on a foundation of zero trust, which is to say, we don't know what the parameters are that are trustable or not trustable. So we assume everything is untrusted, and we actually verify that you are who you say or you are, and you can do what you say you can do. So that zero trust network architecture that we have underneath our whole stack is what enables us to be able to provide this and mitigate to a large extent this problem of shadow IT. It's never possible to eliminate it 100%, but we help you get there. So,
Thank you, Madhusudan. You addressed the question really well. But as there is a prevalence of bring your own device policy in many companies, so what modifications should be brought in their policies to prevent unauthorized tool uses in the organization?
so I'll go back to what we started with, which is to explain the policy, right? By definition, when you kind of enter an employment contract with a company, you sign on a letter that says you understand all the policies. You say that you will comply with what the company wants you to. But we all know that if the policy is very arcane or very difficult to comprehend or uh, essentially unintelligible in some way, we are likely to kind of break that. So this communication aspect is key. So I think what go to resolve helps companies to do is to be able to simplify the language of communication between businesses and its employees, so to speak, in an IT sense of the term. So it's more easy for us to tell companies or for the companies to tell their employees, here are the things that you would like your employees to do, and we'll help you kind of manage that. It basically involves three things. One, to be able to easily create and enforce policies that companies would like. Right? We can't have a one policy fits all. That's ridiculous, and no one's really talking about that. But whatever policy that you might have, if it's easy to kind of implement and enforce, and you can talk to the policy in a conversational tone versus a technical tone, that would help. And we have GoPilot, which is our AI assistant for GoToResolve that helps essentially you do something like that, both from an end user side and from an IT administrator side. The second thing that we do with the device management that we have is we are able to easily separate business use and data from personal use and data. So you can kind of manage your devices, you can use your mobile, and we keep the two separate, and that will work really well for the organization. And the third aspect, I guess, goes back to what GoTo does on a day to day basis, which is allowing you to do your work from anywhere at any time, which essentially assumes that your device does not have to be of a specific type in a specific location in order for it to be a part of your ecosystem, right? So I think that what we've built enables you to essentially get your work done by either bringing your own devices or using company issued devices, but by letting you implement policies that allow you to do a bunch of things and disallow you to do other things while explaining to you why that is disallowed. And more often than not, by proactively fixing issues that come up. So it's really transparent to you as an end user that your device is being adjusted and monitored to be compliant, safe, and effective for your work.
So, Madhusudan, you mentioned about shadow IT multiple times in the conversation. But with the rise of artificial intelligence, we heard about a new term, shadow AI. So, can you explain what is
Yeah,
shadow AI and what makes it managing more challenging than traditional shadow IT?
sure. I'm glad you kind of brought it up, especially it's contextually very good because I just mentioned GoPilot and our own generative AI powered Copilot to help you do what you need to do. Shadow AI is relatively new and uh, I would say relatively more popular these days, just given that AI has become like the buzzword of the times. It's fundamentally people trying to use their own preferred AI or generative AI solutions to kind of do things or to help them be more productive at doing the things that they think that they want to do. And typically, since the industry moves faster than we can catch up with it from a policy and an IT perspective, there's always this gap. Even with tools, the same thing happens. And so, in the ideal world, I would say it's I wouldn't know the answer now, but we typically are one generation behind the cutting edge technology in terms of being able to provide the compliance and the policy guidelines that help you manage it. So the problems that shadow AI. So to get back to your original, what is shadow AI? Shadow AI. You just replace IT with AI. That's what you get. It is the use of unsanctioned or unmonitored, unmanaged AI solutions, tools, and technologies to kind of get your work done. The thing that makes shadow AI a little more complex is um it creates autonomy. It is more complex. It's fundamentally interdisciplinary in nature, right? And so, um, and the biggest risk that it kind of creates is that in unauthorized data access. So if you take your private confidential data and dump it in some solution to get an abstract or a summary of something that you want to do without realizing whether or not that bucket that you put that data into is protected, you're essentially creating a data leak, which creates legal compliance and security issues depending on the nature of your data. Um, the second is not all AI solutions are same. There is bias in a lot of AI solutions depending on how it's trained or how it has learned. And you may, by using a non-curated AI solution, create ethical issues with the kind of decisions that it comes up with. I would say, take an example maybe of you're trying to shortlist profiles and you have a ton of resumes that you get, you don't know how to shortlist them. You say, let me just make my life easy. I know of this wonderful HRAI system that I can dump these things into and get back a list of profiles. Now, if that is vetted and approved and managed by your company, that's great. If not, if that system has a bias in terms of how it has been trained, you have introduced a bias into the way you are managing and monitoring your applicants, which is not good for the business, right? So I think that's a risk that we don't often understand, but may fall prey to if you're not careful about. Um, and the third is, um, I think the sheer complexity of how AI systems operate in the sense that they take a lot of parameters and then create what you need. And so, in order to manage them, you have to not just manage one thing, but all the interconnected things that go into making it happen. The multiple disciplines like um, data science, if you're trying to do analysis, software engineering, if you just want to dump your code and have someone give you like things that can improve your code in some way, uh, and many domain specific things, especially if you're thinking about banking, finance, insurance, healthcare. You can understand the kind of holes that it exposes. So I think managing and monitoring what AI tools that you need to use becomes super important. And what you want to allow and disallow becomes important as well. And explaining that to people, uh, again, comes down to language and how you can tell them what the prevalent dangers are of doing something bad and giving them an alternative that is sanctioned in order for them to be efficient and successful becomes super important.
Sir, here I would like to know the role of GoTo. What role does GoTo plays in addressing challenges related to shadow AI as well as shadow IT?
So I think the best way to think about it is by kind of figuring out what not just go to or go to resolve, but what is needed to manage or mitigate the risk exposed by this problem. And I think the problem, as I can think about it, is one of time and resources, right? So if you have one person or one department dedicated to each such issue, you can probably manage it somehow, but that's neither economical nor scalable. And so you need to somehow consolidate it. Now, the second problem comes is if you have a different tool for everything that you need to manage. You have a tool for a particular type of shadow IT stuff by discipline. If you have a tool for a different kind of thing by discipline for shadow AI, and you're able to monitor and manage all those tools, that's maybe okay. But soon you get into this issue of needing to manage multiple tools, and again, that becomes a focus issue. You're not able to like keep on top of it. So being able to present all the things that you need to pay attention to in a single plane of glass, have like a consolidated view for IT management becomes really important. Uh, the other half of IT management is monitoring, because you don't actually want to manage everything by looking at everything, but automate that. And when alerts pop up, you're able to deal with it and shut it down or effectively address it. And there again, having that single plane of gas that gives you a way to monitor and manage all of those things becomes really important. And if you think of the security or compliance risks that you're trying to mitigate, the risks are created and exposed by these tools that you use. There is another aspect of it, which is social risk, right? So you don't go spilling your secrets to someone and other people eavesdrop. That can only be done through effective employee training, which again is also an important part of this, because there's only so much that automation can help you do. The other half that is equally, if not more important, is to make sure that you actually provide tutorials and training and reinforced training to your employees to make sure that they don't, in human terms, violate the policies that you've created for the company. So, um, what GoTo helps do to address this is provide this kind of all-in-one consolidated IT tool stack and dashboard that can help you create and implement a robust and cohesive security framework. And it happens not by providing all the solutions ourselves, but by being able to integrate effectively with the tools and systems that you already have. Let's say you have Zendesk or MS Teams or ServiceNow or Salesforce or whatever tools that you currently use. It would be foolhardy to think that we will come in and tell you, move that out, put this here, and it'll work beautifully, right? So the rip and replace never worked and will never work. Instead, any new tool that you bring into your ecosystem should be able to integrate with other key tools that are in your ecosystem, but still provide you with a consolidated view of what you need to act upon as an IT administrator. And that's what we kind of uh, help you do essentially. Um, uh, I think the third part of all of this is compliance, right? It's not enough for you to say that I don't have any incidents, I've done what's expected of me, I'm managing my stuff well. Your customers might want to know if it's really true, and they'll say, prove it. The way you prove it is through auditing, by having uh, like SOC compliance or other external standards bodies, or by being able to create auditing and reporting functionality that lets you know that these things have verifiably been done, right? So I think that's the part that we also provide and help you look at or provide to your customers as they need. It's important for your own peace of mind so that you periodically get an audit check done, just like a health check, to make sure everything is okay. And you're able to kind of address issues that you find if you find that either the audit reports are creating gaps, or if other things are happening that we need to address because of the evolution of the tools and systems that you're using.
As we are talking about security measures, can you explain what benefits are brought on the table and how does consolidated IT management and monitoring aid in standardized security measures across different departments of an organization?
Absolutely. I think the sim I would probably start by saying that it makes life simpler and it makes the system less complex. And usually, what ends up happening is complexity creates issues of oversight, right? Either due to not being able to address all the gaps or by just overlooking certain things. Complexity is not necessarily in terms of usability or like the specific tool that you use, because I think across the industry, everyone's moving to more user friendly interfaces, more easy to use dashboards, you name it. We are all trying to do the same thing and make life easy for our users. But it comes from having a multitude of these things that you need to look at. If you need to look at three tools that do the same thing, you need to have expertise in how to use, manage, and effectively deploy those three tools. So let's say you have three or four different things that an IT administrator needs to master. It's not sufficient for that IT administrator to master the one thing and say, I'm done. All of these tools have their own upgrade cycles, are evolving to meet needs that are evolving as well. And so he or she needs to keep themselves constantly upgraded and up to date on all these things. This is above and beyond what they're also supposed to do, their day to day job, which can only have one of two solutions. One, you end up creating an IT administrator per discipline or per tool or per department, you name it. And then you make sure that those tools, systems, and departments also have all the compatibility issues resolved, which is another issue. Or you try to bring everything under one umbrella, under one roof, and consolidate it so you can manage all of these things in a way, in the same way. That also makes it easy for you to define, address, and implement policies that are consistent across the whole department. You don't lose things in translation when you go from tool to tool, translating a particular security policy that is to be implemented in a particular way in one tool with the second or the third one. So that's how you get consolidation and uniformity kind of helping address these things by fundamentally making it more economical, very important in this environment and in this economic climate, and by making it consistent, which makes it more robust.
Thank you so much for your valuable insights. Is there something else you would like to add that I may have missed to ask?
I I think we had a fairly comprehensive kind of view of shadow IT, shadow AI, and kind of what GoTo does to play a part. I'd just probably like to close out by saying that this is a very crucial and evolving aspect of organizations. And I think that it's really important that uh, people kind of pay attention to it so that they don't expose themselves and businesses don't suffer as a consequence of not being abreast of it. So uh, I feel it's a responsibility that companies like GoTo and our peers and competitors have to be able to provide effective solutions to customers to protect them. Um, it's no longer an option for us to stand by the sidelines, so to speak, but really get ahead of these technologies that are enabling so much, but are also exposing new kinds of vulnerabilities, threats, uh, and risks to businesses and help them address it as effectively as possible. So, very happy that we're trying to do our bit and we'll continue to try to do our bit to improve and push the boundaries forward.
Indeed. Thank you very much for your time and willingness to share such insights and your views with us. Thank you so much for joining.